Today on the Idiot's Guide, we are talking about having an interview with Joe about Joe. A story about the man in charge. And while most people are out there in the wild economy just trying to save a buck anywhere they can, a Wisconsin Noodles and Company had to literally save a buck. Deer, that is. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, a.k.a. The Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. Well, we have a little bit different of a format that I think we're going to pursue today, and while we've dropped little morsels of wisdom about our business expertise and things like that throughout our episodes, a lot of it is just kind of, unintentional, I guess. And so, we do draw from that in a lot of different aspects of what we do professionally. But at the end of the day, what about getting down to the nitty gritty and just actually going like, hey, I want to start something. I want to do something. And I don't know why I'm from West Virginia all of a sudden. But, you get to this point and you go, I want to start a business. I want to get it going. And a lot of times it's an opportunity to glean from the success of someone who's down the road. And that's what we do best is, as idiots, we try to project what we've done or accomplished or not accomplished, and from that be able to give you some wisdom, hopefully, from it. So Joe has volunteered to, in proxy, kind of go through some of these interview questions, and our hope is that you can take from this some information about, how do you pursue, what are you looking for, those sorts of things. So I guess, before I jump into this, do you have any disclaimers that you wanna put out there just in case, if I ask the wrong question, you might cuss a little? I don't know.
I don't think so. This is just one individual's opinions. I've been doing this for a long time, but we talked about in a lot of our adulting subjects, finding mentors, finding someone that you can look up to. And someone who can teach you, direct you, help you understand. I had mentors who helped me learn a ton about business and how to properly run a business, how to work with individuals, all those kinds of things. And that's what made me successful. I've had my own failures in business. I think it was because I was ahead of the curve in some of those, but just understanding and knowing a lot of this is going to be really important for anyone looking to start a business, whether it's, selling handcrafted stuff on Etsy or looking to be the next Elon Musk.
Wow. That's ambitious. Possible. Really ambitious.
It covers the entire spectrum.
All right. Well, let's what I want to do is I want to dive in a little bit different of a direction at the front end of this, and just kind of say, like, one of the things that we thrive in is, our client interactions. It depends on what you do, of course, but do you have like a shining star example, something that you feel like is your best, that you can go back and you always think of it? You're like, man, that was a good one.
I do have a client that I always use them as an example, just because of the success that they've had with some of the stuff that I do. So we've talked a little bit about it in the past. I think some of the interview questions go into a little bit more detail about what exactly I do. But I do business and financial consulting, accounting, all of the kit and caboodle that affects
all that funny money stuff,
finances and operations. Yeah. I've got one client. They've been a client for, I don't even know how many years now. Probably 6-7 years at this point. And they've left me twice. and come back both times. I love it.
That's a good thing, I think. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. The reason they left is because they felt that they had graduated beyond my services, and they kind of had. I work with. We're going to talk a little bit about ideal customer and all that stuff. They had gotten a little too large for me. I've actually had a couple of clients that have left and come back, but this one specifically. So they felt they were too big. They needed more information. So they go out and find other companies that tout that they are in this other industry. They can do more, provide more information. And both times it was just a mess when they left. 3 months of no information, no reports. And they're used to getting information on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And so to go 3 months as a business owner without any detail of how your business is running financially, that's a long time.
Especially if you've conditioned them to kind of have that expectation and oh, wow.
And that's what I talked to them about. The first time they came back, I said, here's the reason why this was so bad and why you guys have this negative feeling to, outside services is you got spoiled.
Yeah.
You were spoiled. So when I started working with them, they were making maybe $500,000 in revenue a year, selling a product online. And so, it's somewhat successful. They weren't making a lot of net income.
Yeah.
A lot of revenue, but that net is what it comes down to. It's how much you get to keep. They weren't having a lot of that. And so, from that very beginning time frame to where they are now, they have, let's see, what is that? 14 times the revenue from where they were back then to where they are now.
That's impressive.
And so,
that's really nice.
And that's in, like I said, about, I think 7 years is how long they've been a client. But when I started working with them, they really had no knowledge about what to look for with metrics, really good with sales, really good with marketing, but just not anything they didn't have the financial, the operational, all that extra stuff that takes you from a small business to a much larger business. And so it was really the first couple of years was a lot of education, a lot of teaching, and they were getting those weekly reports. They were getting that weekly data. And yeah, well, I'm not the one that's running their operations. They are. They take the credit for building their business to where it is today. I do take credit for them having the right information at the right time to be nimble and to make the best decisions possible. Mm-hmm. And so if they didn't have that information, they may have still been successful, but I don't think as quickly or as robustly.
I think one of the things that I kind of get to at that is to go like, you've been at it for a number of years. It sounds like, obviously not longer. Longer than that of your clients, but also, just to think like, I hear it always said this way is doing something that you love, and because you love it, you can rinse, repeat, and then you're going to run into hurdles, but you're doing what you love doing. And so it's something where you're like, meh, whatever, cool, let's drive on. And you're going to do it. And you're going to push past that. Would you say that what you do here, seeing the success of different clients is one of your passions? Or, I don't want to assume that.
So one of the things that this is kind of a long answer to that.
Okay.
One of the things that I do on the sides is not my main job. I like doing a lot of research. We've talked about this. I do neurologic research, physics research. I do a lot of different things in my quote unquote spare time. And one of the things that I do neurologically is you look at what are the things that give you serotonin and dopamine. What are these activities that help you be happier? Mm-hmm. And for me, because of the way that I was raised, in a very competitive atmosphere, not a healthy competitive atmosphere, but a very competitive atmosphere growing up, praise and getting a lot of those results of this is great. You're awesome. You helped us succeed. That's one of my big dopamine factors. And so that's what gets me a lot of that. So a part of it is just getting that praise. That's one of the, I guess, passions is actually getting those results. And so seeing that, that's great. Another one of my passions is just data. The more information you have, the better choices that you can make. It's learning, it's experiences, it's more information. And so data management and being able to answer a complex problem is rewarding for me. I love solving problems. Even from the time I was a little kid, like I'm talking like kindergarten, I was doing those logic puzzles where you get those charts and it gives you the 8 questions or 8 statements and you have to figure out all that. I've been doing that since I was a little kid. And so it's solving puzzles, solving the riddle of a business to be able to take it to the best it possibly can be is just another one of my passions.
I can agree with that. Like, I think that me personally, that's a big thing that I enjoy is to be able to dig in and discover and find a little bit more definitive proof of something to be able to solve.
And I do want to say that's an important thing as a business owner. You have to understand what is it that gives you that result. Because I'm an accountant. Okay, that's a very broad concept. What is an accountant? Is it bookkeeping? Is it taxes? Is it audit? Is it business consulting? What is it as an accountant that you actually do? And what is it that you enjoy doing? And so you may get into a business because you have a passion for it, but then as you get into it, you start getting away from that passion. And so if I were to ever not do the actual one-on-one consulting that I do and do the business management side of my own business, I would hate it. I would no longer want to own a business and financial consulting firm because I'm not doing the business and financial consulting that I like doing. I'm not getting the praise that my brain desires in order to be happy. And so it's those kinds of things that you have to recognize, and a lot of business owners get into this. They start a business selling widgets. They like the idea of the widgets. But then the business grows and they become CEO of a business selling widgets. They're no longer selling widgets.
Right.
They are running a company. And so the best thing that a business owner can do in that situation is stay within your passion. If that means that you are the owner of a multi-million-dollar business, but you're sitting on that factory line doing the actual manufacturing because that's what you love doing, do it. Hire someone else to be the CEO. You don't need to be the CEO. You don't need to be the manager. Work on the line.
I would even add, if you've developed the process to get a business to do what you want it to do, if it's widgets, sell another widget. Do another one. Create the next line in that model, whether it's in the same sphere, or because you have something where you're like, right now online sales is kind of the biggest thing. And in online sales, if you have something that you've been able to really build the system around, well, then the system is what you actually created. The widget is just applied to the system and blew up. And that's perfect. So now you go, okay, well, because I have this system, I can now take this and duplicate it. And now you have 2 systems running. You have 3 systems, so on and so forth. And then Joe's super busy.
And I think that's the biggest thing is recognize what your passion really is. It's not about being a business owner. Now, some people do like owning businesses. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It could be doing anything. They're just good and passionate about running businesses.
Yeah.
And so if that's who you're, great. And you should never be on the line if that's who you are. And you have to rely on your manufacturers, on your teams to actually do what needs to be done. But find out what your specific passion is and stick to it. Don't go beyond your passion, because then you'll find that your business starts to fail because you're not focusing on what is important and valuable to you.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but how did you land on your ideal customer?
So it was actually through trial and error, figuring out what kinds of businesses and what level and stage of businesses are going to benefit the most. Now, I say that because my ideal customer, so I do business and financial consulting. And so we create what we call a weekly operating report. And some of my clients have very simple operating reports. Some of my clients have 30 plus page weekly operating reports that are very complex, going into very detailed information. And so when you're looking at this kind of work, so, analyzing a business, telling a business what they should do, figuring out what their whole picture as a business is, their best clients, their worst clients, their demographic regions, what state is best for them, what state is worst for them, all this individual data. Sometimes a small business doesn't have any value to that. So if it's a really small business, so I'd say less than 500,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
even 500,000 in revenue a year is kind of small for some of this data.
Yeah.
I look at those clients more as my educational clients. I'm going to teach them how to run their business and kind of help them. They can't afford.
Don't worry, you'll graduate from daycare into preschool and so on and so forth. It's okay, guys.
Oh yeah. And so I teach them, and a lot of times those clients can't afford the prices that I charge because there's value to what I do, and I have to make sure that there's value. If I could give it away for free, I would, because there's just high value to it, but then I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
Right.
And so in order to make sure that I can do it at the best way that I can, the price point is fairly high, still a lot lower than what other companies that don't do near what I do charge, but still relatively high. And so those smaller clients can't do it. And so you've got to look at the market and what can the market afford.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the first things when you're looking at your ideal client. If you're building a widget and that widget is meant for small businesses, but to manufacture it is going to price you out of those small business markets, you're not going to have a business.
Right.
And so you've really got to look and analyze what is the market for that. And so for me, the market is, and I usually for those $500,000 revenue clients, I look at it, I'll give them free or lower price services in exchange for sample data, because I love having sample data. So when I talk to new clients or prospective clients, I want to be able to share something. This is what it looks like. This is a real informational company. If I try to make it all up, it's not going to make any sense whatsoever. And so I trade that for that. But my ideal client is that probably $1 million to $5 million mark. Maybe a little bit more, 1 million to 10 million revenue mark. A lot of e-commerce clients, but I've got clients that are in the medical industry. I've got clients that are service, product, all different ranges, because every business needs this kind of work. Right now, e-commerce is just popular.
Right.
And so a lot of my clients are e-commerce.
I think one of the things that I could point out in this, in my experience, is when you talked about like these, the sample data clients, is the sliding scale. Typically, it comes from, as your business grows, I grow, my cost grows, mainly for the sense that the workload increases as your success is there. And so, building that into how you're talking and seeking out a client is to go, look, I'll work with even a low end or smaller revenue client. However, as they grow, it's a sliding scale. I will grow with you. Mm-hmm. So know that my costs will increase, but know that I'm doing that to offset how much more work I'm going to produce for you. And so, you know.
Yeah, and I look at those little clients as, obviously I shared the one example that started out at 500,000. Now they're at a whole lot more than that. And so that's a big win for me. You know, they're at full fee. Actually, that client is still at a little bit lower fee because I still use their sample data. I like having their story. I like having their data of showing the history of where they were to where they are today. So they still get a little bit of that. But they grew, like you said. And so they became a regular client at that point. But I look at those how, you know, attorneys or other individuals look at pro bono work. It's an opportunity for me to do a free service to help a business out in the hopes that it'll either grow, which is obviously the end goal for any client, but they all have friends. You know, we talked about networking in our adulting topics. Referrals is such a big thing when you're talking about, if I'm going to be able to give you something for a lower rate, and then here you have 10 other people who are saying, who you can send to me, say, hey, he gave me a great rate and he's helping me out big time. He can help you guys out as well. He's kind of expensive, but you know, he does really great work. I just got potentially 10 new clients. And at my rates, that's a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And so it really is a big benefit. So you've got to look at not only your ideal client, but within that ideal client, what are your standard deviation steps out? Because you can still have clients within those, you know, one or two standard deviations from your base, but you're not going to have all of your clients in there, if that makes sense. So I have a few that are in that lower range, and I have a few that are in that much, much higher range than I'd say that, you know, $10 million mark. And it's just because it's a little bit different that I do with them.
Well, I think it sounds like historically you scale with them. So if they, you know, if they start out at a lower range and grow into that, you know, having these return clients that are going like, wow, we've really outgrown you, Joe, you know, and then they go back and we're like, wow, we really miss you, Joe, you know, like yeah, it's a compliment. That's a great thing. And to know that, like, that means that these companies are experiencing the success and knowing that it's because of you. And that's impressive.
And there's a high end to that as well. So, and for what I do, the high end of that is you're looking at a lot of these companies that are above that mark have entire teams of people doing this themselves. And so they have a team of people. A good example of this is Enterprise. So Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Not a sponsor. It's just I've worked with someone who worked with them in the past.
But if you would like to sponsor us, we will be happy to.
I do prefer
some
Hertz
commercial
over
breaks.
Enterprise, but I shouldn't have said that. So I worked with an accountant who had worked with Enterprise for a few years, and Enterprise does a lot of the same reports that I do. The only problem is they have a team of at least 3 people per region that does the reports that are, again, similar to what I do, managing the operations, looking at the financials versus the operations data to make better decisions. And they are usually reporting that 2 or 3 months after the end of the month that's being looked at.
Okay.
And so their systems are really antiquated, or at least they were when this individual was working with them. And just it was not allowing them to be nimble. And so, but Enterprise is a good example. They have entire teams of people doing this operational data. And so Enterprise is not a good client for mine. Now I could go in and probably tell them how to do it faster and better, but that's a one-time consulting fee and then I'm done.
What do you think from, you know, looking at your ideal clients? Obviously, we've kind of talked. We've alluded to your expertise at this point, but when you're bringing on a new client, is there usually a common thread as far as what you are solving? I mean, the only reason why I ask that is because typically, if you are a service, you want to go at it like a solution, and no matter what if it's lawn care, it everything about car detailing to to financial coaching and business success, seeing how this is, there's usually a common thread that you're the solution. You've provided the solution for. What do you feel like in your experience?
Well, I would add, even in product sales, you are providing a solution.
Right.
So any business is providing a solution, no matter what the business is.
Yep.
And so if you're selling,
I mean, if I have like a Viking Hornstein, it's not really a solution, but
it is.
I get it.
No, I will. So
okay, I know the neuroscience behind it. It's probably right there.
So I was going to say an example. So if you sell unicorn headbands for babies, okay, how is that a solution to a problem? No, it is a solution to a problem. You want your baby to look cute. And so how is your baby going to look cute? Now, most babies are cute naturally, but you want to enhance that for a picture. And so you go out and you look for anything that's going to enhance the beauty. That's really why any of us wear clothes. We have clothes preferences because we think we look good in it. We are solving the problem of our own internal critic of not looking good enough. The Viking beer steins, you want something either as a knickknack to show what your heritage is, which I am a Viking, so yes, I have that Norwegian blood in me.
For root beer, of course.
Of course. No. So growing up, there was a restaurant that we always went to that was called Steerenstein. I had no idea what it meant growing up. It was only until I think I was in my 20s before I finally realized what steer and stein meant. Beer and beef.
Right. That's awesome.
But anyway, it was my dad's favorite restaurant. But I'm saying a lot in this, so I apologize. It is a habit that I try to get out of, but I find myself getting into it because my mom did a lot of that in talking, and so I learned her talking mannerisms. So I apologize for saying so much.
Don't apologize. It's okay. Here's let's zero it back in. That way we can zero in.
So the idea here is you are always solving a problem no matter what the product is.
Yeah.
You need something to drink out of that looks cool. And so what's the solution to that? A Viking mug, a Viking stein. Mm-hmm. It looks cool. It speaks to your heritage, whatever. And so when you're running a business, what problem are you solving? That's the exact question that you asked me. And that's what you have to ask yourself as a business owner. What problem am I solving? And am I solving this better than any random schmo on the street could do? If you don't or you can't, it's probably not going to work as a business. And so, unicorn headbands for babies. What makes your unicorn headbands better than someone else's? Why should they buy from you? If you don't have an answer to that, you're probably never going to get a large percentage of the market share. What I do is I provide a slew of business information, business insight for small to medium businesses that they cannot get anywhere else. It's impossible. I've talked to a lot of clients. I've talked to a lot of very well-networked individuals. And I can tell you that in the United States, at least, I haven't talked to people outside of the U.S., so I don't know outside of the U.S., the services I provide are the only company that provides these services. I am the only one that provides these as an outsourced service.
And naturally, I think one of the things we want to be careful about in this is we're not here to push your product specifically. Right. However, I would ask around this is to say, I use the terminology suite of products. I like that because it sounds sophisticated, but it's really just a list of other things. So
Right.
when you usually have this solution that you bring to the table and you're like, well, bam, here's the solution. And then all of a sudden you go and you go, okay, well, also around that solution are these things over here to entice you as well. And in product sales, when you're talking about, some e-commerce product, typically that's your upsell. You're going to have, oh, come and buy this. And then the next click, it's, but wait, there's more. And then another click, but wait, there's more, and you're like, each time, like you have the opportunity to say no, of course, but do you have things that you've also kind of padded around that make it so that you have a little more, I don't know if the word's rounded, sweet.
Yeah, and they actually, so you're talking about secondary and tertiary products or services. So these are related products. There's an economic term, and I can't remember what it is right now for what those are. But it's, so those products or services are what you're doing in addition to what you do that don't take a lot of extra, but by providing that, you get a well-rounded system. So let's talk about you go to a car dealership, okay? You go there to buy a car. Is that all you're going to do there?
No.
No. Now, some dealerships, that's all they do. They just sell cars.
I'm going to get the Rubicon package, and I'm going to have the lifted tires and eventually I'll get out of there with a $135,000 vehicle.
Yeah, and so car dealerships realize that they're selling cars. Well, cars need maintenance, so let's add a service department. And so, or a maintenance department, so that's oil changes, things like that. And then they realize, well, these cars are going to need service on them. They're going to need new tires. Things are going to break on them. We can offer that too. And so you go to a car dealership. We still call them dealerships. You go there to buy a car. That's their main product. But then they've got these secondary services and products that go along with it, which are maintenance and service.
Well, dealerships sell cars every 3 to 5 years. Like that's typically the lifetime of a car owner. And like that's just the statistics. So everything else that you have there is the bread and butter of the industry, especially the way that vehicle prices are.
Yeah, and more you're finding, the used cars are better. They're doing more for the service because people are lasting longer on their cars. But for my suite of services, they actually started out as the main product, and they've gone down into that secondary product category. So where when I started out with just doing accounting, so it was bookkeeping, it was some analysis, but then slowly I started developing these reports that were across all of my clients basically the same. Now, some of the key data, so you're looking at how many products are you selling versus how many services are you selling. You're looking at what regions are better or what provider is better. All these different things that kind of go into that. Mm-hmm. They're slightly different, but you're all looking at the same basic comparisons of data. And so that slowly became the main product that I sell. And so I'm selling information that shows this is what your weekly break even is. This is what your monthly break even is. This is what you need to be selling or earning per week in order to stay in business. This is what you need to do if you want to be making $100,000 a year or whatever it is. Building out pro formas, building out a lot of these extra things. And then you look at those secondary services, okay, well, if I'm already looking at their reports, if I need their financial information, well, let me do their financial information. So that's the bookkeeping side of it. So providing bookkeeping services. Now, if you're selling something online, that gets really complicated nowadays because of the Wayfair ruling. Mm-hmm. And so a business owner who sells something on Amazon or on their own website, how do I do sales tax? I'm already dealing with their financials. I might as well do their sales tax too. And then we've got people that or businesses that have employees. Okay, well, they're not versed in payroll law or any of these human resources stuff. Well, that revolves around operations and finances. You usually find in a lot of businesses that the human resources is under the CFO.
Yeah, I was
If
just
they
gonna say,
don't
that's
have
typically CFO work.
exactly. And so we help with payroll.
Yeah.
And so all of these secondary services that are related to the operations data that we provide, the financial and operations data, it all fits. Now, not everyone's going to use that. They're going to have their own bookkeeper. Okay, great. We'll just make sure we have their data. And when the bookkeeper doesn't provide data in time, you know that your bookkeeper was really slow in updating those financials. We can provide that for you. And so it's some of those extra things that you're saying, you know, I could advise you on this, or I could just do it for you.
So I think in this collection of basically your your solution that you bring to the table, your suite that supports that, and then looking at that and saying, you know, the question that
You're trying to cough out?
I'm trying to cough out, yeah. The question that I that comes to mind that typically is, I'm going to ask this to somebody that's looking at their business opening, is why is a client going to buy from you instead of the person down the road? And I want to chime in on this real fast, only for the sake that I think, you know, we've really gotten, you know, into some of the details about the being the solution and also having that suite of products. This is the profit hacker speaking. So I'm gonna give you a hack. Do your homework. Go look up businesses that are your competition, that you know. You've met them at networking meetings, you've seen them. See what they offer and do everything you can to be better and faster than they are. And not the same thing. Don't do the same stuff, because faster of the same stuff just means they're going to move faster too. Yeah. But be unique in the fact that they can't even catch you. That's what makes the difference between you being a solution for them or just getting into the fold of all the other competition that's out there.
Yeah. And so going back to the car example, why does someone buy a Toyota instead of a Ford? Why does someone buy a Chevy instead of a Dodge? Why are any of these different solutions out there? Now, we can look at the rankings on the cars, which ones are better, which ones are worse as far as overall. So for me, I always buy Toyota. And the reason for that is because I don't really do a lot except for commute. You know, I don't need to haul anything. I don't need, you know, a high performance vehicle. I don't need, you know, a little tiny sports car. I'm not that insecure yet. And so what I need is a good, long-lasting vehicle. Okay, I'm going Toyota. Now, for my daughter, who just got her license, we bought a good old Ford F-150. It is built tough. Isn't that Ford's? Yeah. I think that's Ford's. And
no, it's, yeah, because Chevy's like a rock.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I know all the jokes. Chevy like a rock. It just sits there on the road.
Yep. Might as well take the tires off and use them on something else.
If you're listening, these are just common jokes. We're not, you know, trying to say anything bad about these companies.
Although Chevy, I will be in your favor if you want to sponsor the show. That's fine.
There you go. I won't, because I like Fords. I'm a Ford family. But no, so we got my daughter a Ford because this thing is massive, and she gets an accident, she is going to survive.
Yeah.
And so it is something that is rough, robust, and it may not last long, or as long as a Toyota or a Honda, which are known to be long-lasting vehicles. But a Ford, if she gets in an accident, which all teenagers will, she's going to survive. Something that isn't necessarily the case for Toyotas or Hondas. Toyotas are relatively safe. They get really high ratings on the safety. But Fords generally, across the board, are safer. Mm-hmm. They also haul better. And so we looked at it, okay, well, we want to do some hauling. We've got some junk and stuff to take to the dump. Okay, we'll get a truck. And so it solved a couple of solutions, solved a couple of problems. And so you're looking at, what is my product going to solve? Now, like I said, I'm the only one in the US that does this as an outsourced service. No one else in the US does this. Now, more people probably will, but for right now, I'm the only one, which is great because I'm solving a problem that no one else is solving.
Mm-hmm.
Why is your product different? Why is yours better than someone else's? Do you have some kind of innovative system, innovative solution? Do you have something that's different from someone else? And you have to look at this. Now, sometimes this doesn't always work. So I'll talk about one of my failures. We ran a health clinic, which was designed for people who had bad insurance or no insurance. And so we weren't looking to make a profit on this. I did put a whole lot of money into it in order to help it to survive. But we went out and we had an entire sales team.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam was with me on this project. That's actually where we originally met, was on this project. And when our sales team were contacting people about this program, so we had a membership fee. You could come in, you could see a nurse practitioner, you could get massage, chiropractic, physical therapy, basically just about any service that you could need from a wide range of different places, all in one. And as we started talking to businesses so that they would advertise it with their employees as an alternative to insurance, which is where the industry is going. Mm-hmm. Insurance is getting way too expensive. People cannot afford it. They are public companies, which means they are paying shareholders, which is not what insurance companies should be doing, in my opinion. People are looking for more of that holistic medical resource.
I think the word is community care. And a lot of them in that community care aspect is you're getting the same care, if not better, mm-hmm. because of the fact that your network is close quarters to you.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot more of that family-oriented aspect of this that provides the same or better care. Now, granted, surgeries are where, that kind of plays the role.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry.
And you keep your insurance for the big stuff, the surgeries or anything like that. That's what you use. That's what insurance was originally designed for. I've done research into insurance and where it started. But the problem was when we were calling people, the answers we were getting were, "Oh, that sounds too good to be true. You can't really be doing that."
Right.
And it was so disheartening because we were essentially just ahead of the curve. We were too innovative because people weren't ready for the change yet. Now, hopefully in 10 years' time, we may try it again and we'll be in line with where everyone wants to be and maybe have a lot more money to spend and get a little bit more traction. But, as it was just too innovative. And I lost a lot of money on that program.
I think one of the things that I like about it is, I loved the model. I loved how it incorporated so many different things. I think the problem is just like you said, it's too ahead of the curve, too good to be true. And honestly, the way that it was received by business owners, the ones that took advantage of it were just head over heels. They loved it. It was fantastic. But it was just one of those things where you also had the administration, the government saying, well, we're going to penalize you if you don't have this. And we're like, okay, it's not traditional insurance. It doesn't stick you in this revolving circle of death until you spiral down. And maybe that's another conversation we can have. But I learned a lot about healthcare, and it is at this point, the only thing it exists to be is a necessary evil. That is it. It is designed to hurt you. And yeah, we'll have another podcast about that. But
yeah, so, and I think that's an important thing to recognize is when you have a failure in business, it doesn't mean you're a bad business person, because I'm extremely successful in what I do for my business and financial and business consulting. Mm-hmm. I do really, really well with that. But with this other one, it didn't work so well. I don't think we did anything wrong. I think we were just ahead of the curve. We had the proper team in place. We worked really hard at it. But it just, in the end, wasn't something that people were ready for. And you have to admit, as a business person, okay, that was a failure. And then you move on. You learn from it. And if you try to hide those failures from yourself, you're not going to be as successful as you possibly could be.
One of the things I brought it up because I've read this book. It's a fantastic book, and it really walks you through a story at the front end of it about his own personal success, but then walks you through the math of how to do all this. And really, honestly, what it is if you feel like you have something that's cutting edge, something that's out there that's just going to be like, wow, this is maybe potentially ahead of the curve. The book is called Ask, period. And it is by Ryan Levesque. Basically, it's talking about it's like a survey style. So you are bringing in and doing test groups, like a community center, using a space there and bringing in, inviting a community of individuals and and having them sit together and question them and talking and getting opinion to see where this is, just to kind of pinpoint some of those traction points. Now, if you're not interested in doing that, don't read the book because it will lay out details about how to do it. But at the same time, if you know, hey man, I've got this business plan, it's worked. And like I said earlier, if you have a system that works and you're just replicating, replicate, please. Don't change what isn't broken.
Yeah. And so,
I remember dreading the day, having the conversation with you and saying, hey, we got to cut our losses, man. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but it's just too soon. That was a difficult conversation, but yeah, sometimes you have to face it.
Those are some dark days in our past. But you move on. I mean, that was one that was innovative, but it was too early. I've got another one. It's innovative. I'm the only one in the US that does it, but hey, it is extremely successful.
So it's fun working with this guy because he has so many crazy, cool ideas. It is every day could be something completely revolutionary, and I'm excited because I get a chance to work with him. So, one of the things about like how you do this is historically clients coming your way. When you get that first client, there's some best practices that are out there, but how have you experienced kind of that growth in a certain way?
Yeah, for me, it's all word of mouth. I don't really even have a website. I'm working on one. I've had one in the past for this, but the problem is the clients that you get for what I do, at least the ones that I got off of the website and advertising that I did previously, were just crap. I think the worst one I got was...
Thank you for your honesty. Hopefully the listener that listens to the podcast isn't that crap.
Yeah.
But if you are, thank you for listening.
One guy literally called looking for my services. He was still a student in college and just had an idea for some business, and he was going to end up being a multi-millionaire in 6 months.
Last name Zuckerberg?
No, not at all.
Just curious.
But I mean, that's the caliber of people that I've had off of website advertising, things like that. And I prefer word of mouth because honestly, that's how I get better resources. That's how I get better clients because they know how I work. I'm not the most personable of people. So when I'm working with someone, I'm very straightforward. And I've got one client right now. I talk with them every Wednesday. And for the last month or so, they have hated talking to me because they're in a little bit of a downturn. And we're talking about ways to bring some better things, get more appointments, things like that, to help improve things. And this last week, we actually had a lot of good news. So it was great.
That's good.
But their office manager or business director, I don't know what her title is. She says, this week I'm just listening to the good things. I'm ignoring all the bad things. And she was walking out, and the two guys that run it kept having to tell her, okay, come back. He's got some good stuff. Don't be ignoring all this. It was more joking. I mean, she wasn't all that, but sometimes I have bad news and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And not everyone wants that out of their consultant. You look at the Dilbert commercials, not to bring him into this because he's got his own controversies going on, but Dogbert is the consultant, and so there are a lot of bashing on consultants with Dogbert, and that is a lot of what you get out of consultants. Is they're just going to give you what you want to hear, whether it's good or not. They're just going to tell you what you want to hear, that everything's sunshine and roses.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. If your business is heading downhill, I'm going to tell you your business is heading downhill. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a client, and I said, when it comes to their busy season is during the winter, and they said, well, we've got to find some way to increase our business during the summer so we can keep these people in our install teams around. I said, no, you have to fire them.
Or seasonally hire them.
Yeah, you cannot keep them on. You have to fire them. I spent 20 minutes just telling them, you have to fire them. You cannot keep them. You can tell them you're going to hire them back. They said, well, that's not a possibility because of the type of people that they're working with. I said, well, that's just what you got to deal with. You cannot keep them. And not everyone can deal with that.
That's a good coaching point, because it's something that you have to be, for the success of the business, you have to be sometimes that kind of person. You don't want to be that person. Mm-hmm. You want to care about their life and what that's going to do to them. But if it is at the demise of your business because of the fact that you care so much, your business is going to bomb.
Yeah.
And you could have prevented it had you not been afraid of something that is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to be, I'm a very straightforward individual. And so when I have people that talk to me, I'm straightforward. If I think you suck as a person, I'm going to tell you suck as a person.
It means I've known you for a while and you haven't said it ever. So winner.
You're safe. But that doesn't work when you're just getting random clients coming in. The clients that I work with know who I am, and so they know who to refer to me that are actually going to work in the system and do well. I had a couple of clients where I would be very straightforward with them, and they just ignored everything that I said and then would blame me at the end because they didn't listen to me. And I'm like, guys, you got to do what I'm telling you. You can't just... Now, with these guys that are firing, their solution, this was honestly the solution, that they decided that they are going to fly me to their location when they're ready to lay these guys off for the summer, and they're going to make me do it. I really don't mind. I'm a straightforward person. I can do that. And so, but like you said, as a business owner, you have to be willing to do that sometimes. But that's how I find clients because it works best for me. Now, we are going to be starting to do some more online advertising, a little bit more targeted, with specific questions, things like that, to weed out some of these crappy resources. So hopefully that will bring in a lot more. Within the accounting world and the consulting world, there's not a lot that comes from advertising. But you don't need a lot.
And I think the other side of this is that most accounting or, accounting professionals or financial professionals aren't salespeople.
Oh, no.
They're very good with numbers, very good with data, and very unapologetic about presenting that data,
Yeah.
But the finesse of getting somebody in the door and that sort of stuff, I would say your first bet is just exactly like Joe said, was, word of mouth. And on the flip side of that is you don't always have to wait for somebody to say something about your business for that word of mouth. You can always go to your clients that are happy and say, who around you do you feel like would benefit from this?
Yeah.
And that in and of itself can tenfold what you're doing in business.
Yeah, the market research is really important. And you have friends that are working on these things. That's market research. Now, for other companies, they do a lot of online advertising. One thing that I do with a lot of my e-commerce and some of my non-e-commerce clients is looking at where their clients coming from. And so we count how many new clients come in from Facebook or Google or Instagram or any of these other resources that they use, how many are coming in from email blasts, how much was the cost on that. And then you're looking at, okay, so Google is the cheapest to get new customers, but you're capped out. You're only ever going to get X amount of new clients no matter how much you spend.
Yeah.
Whereas on Facebook, you're going to get fewer, or it's more expensive, but there's no cap on the number that you're bringing in, or vice versa. You're looking at all that data to figure out what is the best use of my advertising funds to get the most clients in. And this is one area where a lot of companies don't understand the information because there's no good resource out there. There are some websites that do it, but even as we've been looking at over those websites that these clients have subscriptions to, they're not giving them all the best information because we're looking at all of the raw data. And so we're looking at, if you're spending X amount of dollars, is there a cap? So I have one client where if they spend more than $8,000 on a specific site, they are only getting an incrementally fewer number of new clients or of new customers.
Okay.
And so if it costs, say, $80 per customer between $4,000 and $8,000, which is their sweet spot, anything less than $4,000, they're actually losing new customers. So $4,000 to $8,000 is their sweet spot. If they start, and if it's $80 per new customer, once they get above $8,000, now it goes to like $120 per new customer. And so yes, you're getting new customers, but it's a 50% increase in cost. And so is that worth it to get that new customer that's going to cost 50% more than to just stay in that sweet spot of advertising? And this is another really important thing, not necessarily when you're starting up, but as you're getting into business, is what is the best use of your money? Because that's coming out of your pocket. You're not going to make that net income because you're spending it on advertising. So you want to get the most efficient advertising possible to get the best result and to get more money in your pocket. And so it's really important, not just looking at, what type of advertising is best for you, but where are you getting that customer from? What avenue of advertising, what software, what site is coming in, and what's that cost? And so there's a lot that goes into it that's really important as you're looking at all this to figure out how to make the most money.
I think, to wrap this up, as far as this, you mentioned at the very beginning how you've been around fantastic mentors and people who have been that accountability in your life. And it comes down to having particular goals in mind. If you're venturing down the road of trying to get a business off the ground and see the success, I recently heard one that was basically just talking about I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but just mentioned about ambitious goals. There's this argument: do you want to be conservative in your goals? Do you want to be ambitious in your goals? Honestly, as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur mind is going to say they thrive in risk. That risk means that you want a big goal. You want something that's like, that's going to be ridiculous to try to get to. But the reason why you put that goal there isn't to be like, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be that, But, and this came from somebody who was he's a billionaire, and Grant Cardone, that's his name. So fantastic business guy.
No.
Just
I will disagree with you with
wild
that,
chaos. Okay, so
Grant Cardone is, in my opinion, an awful businessman. All he does is builds on the hype, and he has no idea what he's doing, in my opinion.
Well,
sorry, I have issue with him specifically.
So I in referring to goals, okay, I'll stay in that lane.
There you go.
Okay, goals in the sense of setting that big thing that just seems untouchable. It's actually about the micro that we're talking about instead of the macro. Mm-hmm. When you have something large, you're going to look at this and say, hey, what am I going to do tomorrow or today to make a difference to get to that goal? Am I, do I have to make so many contacts? Do I have to design something specific? Do I need to understand what my unique selling proposition is? Do I need to do these little things that will impact the greater goal? But each one of those, you have to look at it and go like, when I've completed this task, it is an accomplishment under that big goal. With that big goal comes huge reward. However, it's the micro where the work is, and you're putting the work in, and it feels like it's hard work, and you're like, ugh, come on, I want to get to that over there, and you're like, well, it's a lot of work. But praise those little goals as you make that progress, and you have that next stepping stone, because in mind is always the big goal.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Joe?
So I've actually got a really good story from this that I heard years ago. It's about keeping your eye on the goal and making sure that it's a solid goal as opposed to goal that keeps moving. So a farmer tells his son he's going to start learning how to hoe the rows in the field. And so the farmer, a very experienced farmer, tells him to make sure you have the straightest lines, find an object in the distance, and keep your eye on that. And so long as you have your eye on that, you will hoe a straight row. Okay? And so giving this piece of wisdom to his son, sends his son out there to start hoeing the rows. So his son comes back feeling very successful and says, "Dad, I did it." And so the dad goes out there to inspect, and these rows are just going all over the place, left and right and crossing over each other. And he looks at his son and says, "How did you do this? This is all over the place." Son says, "I did exactly what you told me to. I looked out to the horizon. I saw that cow out there, and I just followed wherever that cow went." And so for every row, he was following this moving cow that was just going through the field. And so it was all messed up. So the idea is when you have that goal, make sure it's a solid goal.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're actually following it. Just like those rows, you're not just doing one thing and you're done with a field. You have to hoe each individual row in order to have that entire field. And if you don't do each one individually and don't have the right goal in mind as you're doing each individual step, you're going to have a not so correct results.
And I think, part of that is the accountability aspect of it is you're not by yourself, and don't try to do it by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I think that having wisdom spoken into your life is an essential ingredient in that success. Whether that's a coach, whether that's a consultant, whether that's a dad, telling you not to follow cows, or,
And we've talked about this, eventually on this podcast, we want to be able to do that mentorship program, through memberships or Patreon or whatever those different resources are when we actually have more than one listener.
Yeah.
Because as it is, we can do pretty well with just one listener giving random advice. But eventually we would like to do more and be that mentor to people who don't have that resource. So listener, please share this podcast. Please, leave comments so that we can get more feed on this, so that we can hopefully reach out to more people. You are our avenue to the rest of the world right now.
Yes. And honestly, I'm not typically the fan of organic growth, so it will be motivated financially, because that's the road that, organic's cool, neat, but it never is the whole. You don't put all your eggs in that basket.
Yeah, it depends on the industry. It really, really does. If you try to do word of mouth by selling a product online, you're never going to get off the ground. But it really depends on the industry. Some things, if anyone likes the movie Tommy Boy, the entire point of that movie is they're going around trying to sell their product to their main distributors. And so they're a manufacturer of widgets. and they go out and they try to get their distributors to sell those widgets, and the whole thing is about the warranty, right? That's what makes them different, is they're the no warranty. They don't need the warranty because their product is so good. And he finally gets that in the end. But sometimes it's that in-person visit, like Tommy Boy, where you have to go out and sit down with people. Sometimes it's word of mouth. Sometimes it's advertising. Sometimes it's advertising on Facebook, Google, emails. Sometimes it's all of the above. But find what works best for you to build that business and get more out there.
So speaking of a really good business, Noodles and Company. Fantastic.
In my opinion, everyone's going to know that I'm going to say something bad whenever I say the words "in my opinion." I am. This is what I'm telling you. I
gotta get like a dun dun dun.
I have to find the right clients with me because I'm a very straightforward individual. Noodles and Company. In my opinion, it is way too much money for how little food they give you.
True.
I'm just gonna throw that out.
Okay.
There. Anyway.
I'm in pretty much everywhere right now is that way, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're worse than anything. You buy a little thing of gnocchi and it feeds like a baby. And it costs $20 for gnocchi.
Okay, we're not bitter though, guys.
No, one of my daughters, her favorite place is Noodles and Co. I know I'm completely destroying your transition here. But her favorite place is Noodles & Co. This is why I know so much about it, because she likes to go there, and I have to order like 3 or 4 servings of their gnocchi before it actually fills me up.
More! Another one! Come on, chef. Bring them out. This Noodles & Company was actually on the video very busy. There was pretty much every table in the place was full.
Wow.
And in the process of them enjoying their lunch and getting their meals and putting an order in, whatever it is, all the hustle and bustle, a buck, just jumped through like a window or something, like through one of the windows in the doorway, and then pushed through the door, and then came charging through and through everybody. Like you see everybody scatter and up on the tables and in their booths and just getting away. And this deer cruised through the main area, the main eating area, and then made its way back to the kitchen and checked out as like, what's for lunch? Do you guys have any berries or, some grass? I'm not really a pasta guy, but maybe I could probably do some grain. I don't know. But then one of the employees managed to prop the back door open, and the buck eventually made its way out of the store. And I'll link the video with our video. But I think the funniest part about it is it's just weird. Like you're sitting there eating, you're like, I'm eating my mac and cheese, and they're just like, that's a deer. Oh dear. And the only thing I can think is they're getting their or the buck stops here. Maybe they're getting their bang for their buck. So, they got a buck for their bang. So
there you go.
They the next day they did mac and cheese for $2, which it didn't make sense to me because it would have been $1. Like $1 mac and cheese would have been relevant to the actual.
No, they were
story.
trying to encourage another buck to come through.
That's probably what it is, or at least they're used to jacking their prices up to outrageous. So they're like, $1 is way too cheap. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I just can't, But at least you revealed your profit margin. Thanks. That's huge, guys, and ridiculous. If you get $2 for your mac and cheese, and
in our opinion.
Sorry, my bad. Greedy.
In our
you are the reason we're inflating.
In our opinion.
Hey guys,
Can
I gotta
you tell
stop.
the different avenues here?
I gotta stop because I'm venting at this point.
But that is pretty good. $2 macaroni and cheese, hoping to get that second buck in the door.
Yeah. It's a lure.
I don't know if they were advertising to the right market though, in order to get that buck in the door. How do you advertise to bucks? I
usually isn't there like a
road signs or something?
Or a smell, like the deer smell?
Yeah, there are deer calls, and
that's about the only thing you can advertise. But typically, it's not the best scenario for the deer. I mean, depends on who you ask.
They probably should have worked on their marketing a little bit better than that one. I don't think they got that second buck in.
I'd have been like, $2 mac and cheese.
Because then they could have done $3 mac and cheese.
For $1, you can upgrade to deer meatballs.
No thanks. No thanks.
All right. So we have reached the end of our show today.
Thankfully.
Hey guys, life's too short. Keep laughing, keep learning, and remember, idiots have way more fun.
Check your shoes.